What's up, folks? Jim here. How's it going? Probably wondering, hey guys, this isn't Competitive Corner. What's going on? Well, my partner in crime, Alex McDougall, could not make it today. He was sent me a very late message that he's late for work. So instead of doing a traditional episode, I thought I would do some hobbying and also talk competitive, but it's not obviously going to be a normal episode. So it's going to be a bit of a hobby chat, Competitive Corner mix. Going to talk about my event this weekend. Going to talk about a kind of controversy that I've talked about before, but I guess I want to talk a little bit about my perspective and just reiterate my perspective on dropping an event or leaving games or quitting games in general. I just want to kind of really make my position clear and let people disagree with me and let people say I'm a bad person and I should never play 40k again. But I definitely feel like I don't care, I guess. Rustic, how's it going? I also want to talk about my Thousand Suns list that I ran this weekend and give you guys my thoughts on kind of like how it did overall, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'm going to change potentially moving forward. I've had a bit of revelation, which I think is like a good thing from playing, and I'm excited to share those thoughts with you. I've already rewritten a list for the next time I play, and I have some ideas and thoughts for you guys, I guess, on my list. I'm only going to stream an hour tonight, guys. I do have a dinner date, an actual date in about an hour. So I'll tell you guys about that too, because I know you guys love hearing about my personal life so much. And I'll tell you guys about my weekend, answer any of your questions. And yeah, hopefully you guys are down for that and not like a full-on basically like hobby chat or competitive corner. I also miss Alex because we actually played this weekend, and I was really excited today to tell you guys about the event that Alex ended up winning. So congratulations to him. I knew he would win it as soon as we played our game, because from my perspective, and we'll get into this a bit, from my perspective, and maybe I'm like egotistical in this, but it was a very small event, only 30 people, very local. So it was just basically like a bunch of our local play group. A lot of people from like in our BC 40k league, so a lot of very new 40k players, a lot of people whose event this was their first event. So given that, I knew that in the event there was basically like 3 people maybe that I had to worry about and that I could potentially lose to, and everyone else I felt very, very confident that I wouldn't lose. And you know, some people are going to say, well, Jim, that's really egotistical of you, or that's really like I guess presumptuous of you. And you know, you're probably right. But if I would say like in say John Lennon's position, or in like top player's position, top NC Sean Naden, when you go into an event, you very often, and when you're, you know, look, I'm not as good as I'm not as good as I used to be on the game because I'm just out of practice, but I still think I'm a very good player, and I still have a lot of the like ability to play at that high level. The issue for me being is I don't have practice, and I'll talk to you guys a little bit about why I think that practice is so important and what it had, I guess, the impact of lack of practice had on my loss to Alex, and it's pretty big. But like honestly, when you go into an event, you'll usually know, especially a very small event, 30 players. I knew almost everyone there, and the people I didn't know like literally just started playing 40k. So there's probably like a half dozen guys there that I was like, you guys are like actually like know the rules, know the game. The rest basically were very new at 40k, so weren't really in that place. But when you're playing at that level, it's very easy to kind of go into an event and look at the list of players and be like, okay, here are the people that I think could beat me, and here are the people that I just win those games every time. And there was a bit of that, I guess, this event, where I felt like, I felt like some of the games some of the opponent, like, I guess I felt I had a pretty good shot of taking the event if I could beat Alex. He was the guy that I was like, if I can beat Alex, I can win this event. And I didn't beat Alex, spoiler alert. But I want to tell you guys about the game because it was probably one of my favorite games. Oh, hey, Ryan, how's it going, man? And yeah, I got a bit of grief. So I'll tell you guys about my game, but let me know what you guys are working on. So today I'm working on my continued Exalted Champion. So since last, I guess, session, the work that I've gotten done on him is I basically managed to base coat all the gold, base coat the blue, and then I've done like the first just highlight of Thousand Suns blue on the Thousand Suns, is that on autofocus? Yeah. Sorry, Thousand Suns blue on the blue armor. And that's basically all I've done so far. So, 1 second here. Let me just check out these settings. No. Let's see, hold on. Yeah, so anyways, where's my brightness? I think that's it. No, 6.3. Is that too grainy, guys? That's not too grainy, is it? How's that quality, guys? Is that like grainy? Because I cranked the ISO, but sometimes I find with the ISO on the camera, it gets a bit grainy, but I think that's fine. I just don't want it too dark. Yeah, okay, so before we get into the actual game, I want to reiterate my stance, and this is something that I don't want to say in a Twitter fight, but, oh man, that's not good, right? I want to reiterate my stance on when it comes to dropping events, and I know I've had this conversation. I had it a little bit last week with Tom when he was on the show about like whether players should ever be forced, I guess, to play a game that they don't want to, and I was talking more in the respect of like dropping out or like quitting a game mid-game. Like say you're losing the game and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna win this game. Let's call it there. Hold on 1 sec, guys. So here's my thoughts, guys. So broadly, I think that as a player, we play this game for fun and we play this game for enjoyment. And I never think that players should be forced to play a game or games that they don't want to play, right? For whatever reason. I don't think that you should have to justify it. Ultimately, if you don't want to play a game because you just don't want to play it, like you literally don't feel like it, that for me is a good enough reason to not play a game, right? Now, people will say, well, Jim, that's a shitty reason. You shouldn't go to events if you're not going to commit to playing game. Well, no, I disagree, because ultimately we play this game for fun, and fun is the most important thing. And if you're not having fun, or if playing the game will result in you not having fun, or if it's not fun for you to play anymore, then don't play. And look, life is short, guys. We have one life. We have limited time on this earth. And I don't ever think people should be doing things in their lives. And this is just my general philosophy, I guess, with a lot of things. I think people should be doing things that they enjoy and spending the limited time that they have doing things that they enjoy and not forcing themselves unnecessarily, if they don't have to do things that are not fun, right? So with that in mind, what did I do? I played my event, my first day. I lost my third game to Alex, top table. So I was top going into the third round, lost my game to Alex, which I knew going in, if I went 3-0, I was gonna like do nothing, stay home, and really focus on winning the event. I knew that if I lost the game day one, I was gonna go have fun, because for me, a big part of my life that is outside of Warhammer is my social life. I have a very active social life. Some of you guys don't like, so I have two Instagrams. I have like my own Instagram, then I have like, my Jimbo V Paints, which is my like Warhammer Instagram, which I encourage you guys all to follow. But I also have a personal Instagram, private Instagram, that is like not open to you guys. But for those of you that are my friends and that know me and do follow me there, and or also just in any of the chats I'm in, you guys all know that I have a very active social life. Like I'm not a homebody. I go out a lot. I love going to parties. I love going to dancing. I like going to like live music. I like going to like outdoor events. You know, you guys have noticed that I've been gone a lot of weekends, and that's usually because I'm out camping, that kind of stuff. And so, well, Brandon, that's not up to me, right? Like the TO the reason TOs have ringers is so that if there's an odd number of players, that they can cover that off. But it's not up to me to make sure. Like, look, in the event we actually played in, we actually had an odd number of players, and the TO didn't play, and then like one guy didn't show up, and then the TO had to play. So there was a contingency plan for an odd number of players. So regardless, TOs, when you run an event, you need a contingency plan for an odd number of players so that people don't get a bye. But even if someone does end up getting a bye because there's not enough players or the TO didn't plan for that, then that is the risk that you take when you enter an event, is that there's a chance, if you're like say on the bottom of the standings for whatever reason, and there's an odd number of players, that because of that, and if the TO didn't plan for it, that you might end up getting a bye. That's just a risk that you sign up for when you sign up for a tournament. What you don't sign up for is being forced to play every single game because like you owe someone. That's not part of it. That's, again, this is just my opinion, guys. You can disagree. You can say, no, Jim, you're wrong. You should care about your opponents. And I do care about my opponents, but I also care about my happiness in my life. And maybe that makes me selfish. But that's okay, because I know that I have one life, and I work hard, and I go to events for fun, and then I go out for fun, and I like to do stuff with my friends for fun. And those are two big parts of my life. So anyways, so on Saturday night after my loss, I went home, and I had every intention of staying in. I even told my friends not to really message me. And then through a bunch of series of events, which I won't get into, I did end up going out. I didn't get home and my intention at that time was to get home at like a reasonable hour, like maybe like 3 a.m., sleep like 3-4 hours, and then drive to the event. So I didn't go out with the intention of not attending the event, but I knew that it was a possibility, right? Depending on my state. And for those that also know me closely, you know that I definitely have had struggles with substance abuse and drinking. And I basically was out till about 7 in the morning on Saturday night. And so when I got home, I took myself home at about 5:30 a.m. I think, but I didn't really fall asleep till around 6:30. And I set my alarm for 8:15 to get up to go to the event. And around 8:15 I woke up, and I was still very, like, I was unable to drive. I was not in a place where I could drive. So I texted Dan, who's the TO, and I said, hey Dan, I'm not gonna make it to day 2. So did I premeditatively go into the event thinking that I was going to drop the second day? No. Did I leave the event on Saturday night thinking that I was going to drop? Nope. But I went out, I had a bunch of fun with my friends, and in the morning when I woke up, I realized I was not in a position that I could drive myself. Like, if someone was there maybe to give me a ride, I could have maybe made the event, but I was not in a physical shape. It would have been dangerous for me to get on the road. So I decided not to go to the event. And I didn't think anything of it, because from my perspective, not only was it not safe, and don't get me wrong, guys, I didn't just not go because it wasn't safe. Like, obviously that was an important thing, but at the same time, even if I had felt not drunk in that morning, I was quite hungover, and I just didn't feel like playing those other 2 games, right? So between those 2 factors, I decided not to do the event. Now, this was a small event, a local event, very last minute. It wasn't a big deal from my perspective, because it was just like a kind of a fun, meaningless event. And, like, I didn't think that it was a big deal that I didn't show up. Like, it's not, no one's like counting on me. No one's waiting on me. No one's like, Jim, oh my God, Jim's not here. And, I even told Dan, I was like, hey, if I go out tonight, there's a chance I don't make it tomorrow. So I'm going to pack up my army just in case, but I'm going to do my best to be here tomorrow. And look, those guys, they're all local guys. They all know me. And in the end of the day, I didn't make it to the event. Okay, so do I feel bad about it? In retrospect, I really wish I'd gone to the event, because I feel like I wanted to play those 2 games, but ultimately I made other choices that night that led me not to be able to go. Okay, so I actually wish I had gone. I regret not going to day 2, right? But at the same time, I don't regret it because of some, like, I guess, obligation I felt towards my opponent or someone else that I should go. I regret it because I personally, looking back, probably could have gone home like an hour earlier than I did. I stayed out far later than I needed to. Like, I kind of stayed out, like, some of my friends were going home, and I kind of stayed out because again, I was, drinking heavily and, dabbling, and it was a bad choice for me to stay out, right? So I could have gone home earlier. So in that sense, I do regret staying out, but I don't regret going out though, right? I had a lot of fun on the Saturday night. I got to hang out with like some really close, good friends of mine. I got to have really good memories and really good fun. And at the end of the day, I don't regret that, right? I do regret not making the second day, but I don't regret having fun with my friends. And I'm never going to regret that. I'm never going to regret doing things in my life that are fun and that I enjoy, right? And sometimes that's Warhammer, and sometimes that's hanging out with my friends, right? And if you guys had been in my shoes, maybe you would have made a different decision, right? And maybe you disagree completely with everything that I'm saying. Maybe you think I'm a bad player. I shouldn't attend events if I can't commit to them. And you know what? You're totally like entitled to that opinion. And it's okay if I don't agree with you, if I think that my personal happiness, or like in this case, like my choices are mine alone, and like, you know what I'm saying? So now if this had been like a very serious, for instance, I'm going to the Las Vegas team tournament in 2 weeks, right? And no, Rostic, but good example. I'm going to the Las Vegas team tournament in 2 weeks. I'm the captain, right? I've committed to the team, to this event. Obviously, if I'm in Vegas and I'm not going to go get fucking blasted and then not show up to the event, because I'll be letting down my team, right? In this case, I'm not letting down anyone except myself. And yeah, as I said, I'm a little bit choked that I didn't make it, because in retrospect, I think I could have probably gone 4-1 at least, and maybe, picked up some hardware. But that's not even why I play Warhammer, right? Like, people think that I play Warhammer because I'm like trying to win something, or because I'm competitive in some way. And although I am competitive, I never go into an event with me this idea that like I deserve to win, or like I only have fun if I'm winning. I have fun. I do have fun when I'm winning, but like for me, the game itself is the fun part, right? And playing high level Warhammer against really good players, that's fun for me. That mental math. And in my head, I was like, you know what? I've already played 2 really, really tough games, because I'll tell you about my second game shortly. But basically my 2 games were against Alex, who won, and the second place player, Brandon St. Pierre, who was the only player that beat me in the league, the BC 40K league. So from my perspective, I'd played 2 really hard games, and I'd gotten the practice with the list that I wanted, which is the main reason that I went to this event, was for practice for the LVTT. And so from my perspective, I had achieved my objectives. So my objectives were to go and play a few games with my list, have fun, and if I was doing really well, or if I really felt like it, I would go to both days. That was always my objective from the get-go. I never went in, I don't care. It's a 30-person local event that we organized with a week to go. So from my perspective, I achieved my goals, and I did the things that I wanted to do at the event, and that's enough for me, right? I got the practice that I needed, and I felt good about both of the games that I played. I felt really good about, I didn't feel good about how I did, but I felt good playing them, and I felt like it really gave me a bit of, it made me kind of, think about the things that I need to do better and improve on. And that's the best way that I learn, is like by playing it and doing. So that was kind of that's my kind of, tournament report. And reason that, if you guys look at my record, I only finished 2-1. I did not play in the second day. I'm not sure how I did on painting. No one really told me. I think I did pretty well on the hobby side. Like, my army was fully painted. So it was nice to play a game. Honestly, guys, though, big thing. That's the first time I've played an event since February of 2020. And holy shit, was I tired. Like, after my second game, I had like a fucking massive headache. My feet hurt. And it was only second game. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I think I was either number 1 or number 2 in the rankings. And I kept just thinking, I was like, I hope, I want to play Alex, and I'm sure I'll play McDougal, but I just hope it's not tonight, because I'm so tired. So I hope if I do play him, maybe it's in round 4 or in round 5 at like the top table. And sure enough, I got Alex. So I was like very tired going to that game. Like my brain was not working, and it led to quite a few mistakes in the game, which ultimately cost me the game. But I don't think, so I think I could have won that game, and I'll tell you guys about the game a little bit. But yeah, I just was really tired and out of practice. Like, the combination of being tired and out of practice, those are the two things that kill you, right? So if you're just tired, if you've practiced a lot, your muscle memory can carry you through. And if you're like the repetitive nature of having played a lot, that like muscle memory of like remembering how to do XYZ can carry you through. And vice versa, if you're well practiced, right? Even if you're not tired, the practice itself, if you're tired, but you're well practiced, then the practice can carry you through those moments when you're tired. And then in moments where you have lots of energy, but you're not well practiced, because you're able to use your brain and you're not that tired, you're able to kind of remember a lot of the things that maybe you would forget if you're tired. So me being both tired and not practiced, like that was literally the third game I've played with the book. Fourth game, the second two being the earlier in the day, and then one playing them in my last league game, like a few months ago, like about a month ago. That's literally the only Warhammer I've played, right? With the new book. So there's a lot of things that I forgot. And then just in general, 9th edition, it's such a different edition than 8th, that the biggest thing that actually fucks me in 9th edition is actions. Like I always forget to do my actions. So like, to give you an example, in my first turn against Alex, I literally, it was data intercept. It was whatever one has data intercept as priority target as the secondary. I moved on to 3 objectives, and I literally just like I had units that could do it. Like I had the units available to do the action, and I just like literally just didn't do it. Like there's literally units sitting on the objectives that did nothing that turn. They easily could have just done the action, but I just forgot. Like I just literally didn't do them, and that would have been worth 3 points, and I lost the game by 2 points. So just even my first turn, had I just like remembered to do that action, I would have won the game. So that was the kinds of like mistakes that I made that cost me the game, right? And that is okay, and I'm glad that I made those mistakes, because the best way for me to ultimately learn how to like be better at 9th edition is to understand how important things like actions are and to remember your actions. So now I'm gonna try to think about strategies that I can employ in my gameplay as I play a game to remind myself to make sure to do actions. So that might be, and I think if I'm going into like LVTT, I'm actually gonna make myself an index card with like kind of an event, I guess like I don't know how to describe it, but like a cheat sheet almost of like starting by turn, like which units are gonna do actions, maybe tokens or something like that to even mark them that like a unit's gonna do an action so that I remember it to like declare it. And then things that I need to do in my command phase, things that I need to do in my psychic phase with my cabal points. So I had my magic cards, obviously. Yeah, Rustic, I was drinking water and I had eaten and stuff, but my brain, it's just like a lot of Warhammer for me, someone that hasn't been playing. And talk to any player that like hasn't really played an event, and you really lose a lot of your like, I guess like I don't know, endurance, I guess. But again, it's just a matter of practice for me. Like I really identified it as I just need to play more games just so I don't make those kinds of mistakes, right? So it wasn't anything that I felt was like super game breaking. My strategy, like my overall strategy in my games was right. Like I played the games, like my second game against, my game against Alex, it was basically corner deployment, and I turned it into hammer and anvil. And overall, like the actual, like where I put my models, how I played the game as far as like my actual strategy, how I was going to win the game was correct. And had I executed it better by remembering to do fucking half the shit that I was supposed to, I think I win that game, right? Because I had but so that was a big part of it. The other part too was also just like not practicing against Alex. Like I haven't played Tyranids against Tyranids for so long that I like forgot half the stuff that they do. So a big part of my loss against Alex as well was just like forgetting that like his Swarmlord can double move everything. So for some reason in my head, I'm so used to the Swarmlord double moving Gene Stealers. In my head, I was like, oh, it can only double move infantry or something like that. And then here he has this Hive Tyrant fly, 33 inches across the table and punk my Exalted Sorcerer turn 1, which I like, in retrospect, again, I should have known that, right? Like I've played against Tyranids. I know what Swarmlords do, but I just forgot in that game that is something that could happen, like I wasn't thinking, right? And that was like, you know, you could say it's a I wouldn't say it's a gotcha on Alex's part. It was just something that, you know, his army can do that I forgot about, right? So that's on me, right? Now, there was a time actually that Alex did something where I almost gotcha'd him, but I didn't want to gotcha him, so I told him. So basically, he didn't remember that, nor remember, and I don't blame him because it's a new book, right? So when it's a new book, sometimes I feel like it is important for you to tell your opponent what's happening or what you have. And so he was deploying deep strikers, and he didn't realize that I had an Auspex scan, and I had enough units there to basically blow off his whole unit. And instead of letting him do that, he placed the unit, and I was like, I basically was like, FYI, I have an Auspex scan. Do you want to place that somewhere else? And he was like, oh, fuck, yeah, okay. And then he like moved the unit. So I could have not said anything. I could have said, hey, I'm Auspex scanning you, but I didn't want to win my game like that because Alex is a really good opponent, and he's a smart opponent, right? And he's not the kind of opponent that would forget that kind of basic shit. Like if he knew the book, if the book had been out later, that I trust that Alex is a good enough player that he would remember which books have Auspex scans. Like that's not a thing that he would forget. He's that caliber of player. But so I knew if I gotcha'd him on that, it wouldn't feel good for me because I'd be like, I just did something to you that like you just made a mistake that you normally wouldn't make because you're a good player, and I won the game on that. And I don't want to win the game like that. I want to win based on like me outplaying you and me playing a smarter game than you. And for me, when you forget stuff, and you get gotcha'd like that, then that's not a good way to win. Now, in my case, you're like, well, Jim, why didn't you do that to him? Well, first of all, it was already the movement phase. So like, it wasn't like at the moment I was moving stuff, he was like, oh yeah, you can do this. It was in his shooting phase. So he'd already done a psychic, he'd already done all this stuff, and then he moved it, and I was like, oh shit. So this was like already like a turn later, basically, when he was doing the double move with his hive tyrant. So there wasn't really like a chance for him to be like, hey, by the way, remember how you moved that guy there? Like, and I'd already done a bunch of stuff. So like, it wasn't a possibility of like me doing like a take back or like a realization after he had done that. But at the end of the day, like, I know Alex is a good enough and smart enough player that maybe he was just tired and forgot that rule or that I had it. Plus the book is new, and I just didn't want to win that way. I didn't want everyone to be like, Alex would have won, but Jim had an Auspex scan and then didn't say anything, and kind of gotcha'd him and just like totally destroyed him. Because I know in any normal game, in any normal scenario, Alex doesn't make that mistake. He's too good for that. And so I didn't want to win like that. And I'm sure if the roles reversed, actually, and a similar thing happened later in the game where literally this is what happened. Yeah, and I want him to play the game and make decisions like that he would normally make. There's another situation where he actually kind of returned the favor where I like literally, this is literally what I did. I moved my Terminators. I said to him, I'm like, okay, I gotta deep strike, I gotta dark matter crystal these. And then I go to buff them with like my first spell of my psychic phase. I'm like, okay, now I need to prescience my Terminators so that they can shoot, but I'm like, wait, they're not where they're supposed to be. They're not where they're supposed to be. Like, oh fuck. And I was like, Alex, I literally said I needed to move these for my dark matter crystal, but I physically just didn't move them. And so when I went to buff them so that they could shoot the thing that I was supposed to, I was like, do you mind if I just like, cause I hadn't cast any other spells yet. So it's still kind of the start of my shooting psychic phase, end of my movement phase. So I'm like, do you mind if I actually move them now? Because I totally forgot to move them. And he's like, yeah, no problem. So he returned the favor in that sense. And again, that wasn't like a case of, me like all of a sudden, trying to like do something. It was like literally like I declared what I was thinking of doing. And then I just like physically didn't move the models. I was like, okay, like I moved the character over so that they could get dark matter crystal. And then I just physically forgot. I just like, okay, psychic phase. And I looked down and my unit that was supposed to be a shooting was not where I thought it was. Like I went to point to the unit and it was like I had forgot to move the model. So he's like, yeah, go ahead and move it. So we both made like little mistakes like that, and like, you know, we have enough I guess rapport that like he was cool with it. So yeah, so it was like, again, what goes around comes around. Like neither of us wanted to win. He didn't want to win because I forgot something that I had basically declared, and I didn't want to win because like he was just unaware of like a brand new book. So, but other than that, it was a really close game. It basically came down to the last roll. And again, this is where my lack of practice really shows. I made a kind of a crazy jank move in the last turn where I got 3 rubrics onto one of his objectives and where he had a lictor. And had I just, instead of killing the lictor, had I just wrapped it with my rubrics, because he had 0 CP, so he couldn't have desperate breaked-out. So if I'd like charge it away so that like only my 2 regular dudes attack, and then I wrap it with my my 3 rubrics, like tri-point it, he would have been stuck there, which would have meant I would have gotten that objective, and then I win the game. But instead, I killed the lictor because I wasn't thinking ahead, and then he just shot the unit off the board and was able to then take back the objective with a non-obsec unit. So had I just been a bit smarter about like what the implications of killing that model would be, again, I would have won the game. But these are the kinds of mistakes that I like making, because these are not they're tactical mistakes at a very small level. There's another thing that I like did where and I was tired, man. I was like really tired, and I thought the game was close, but like I didn't think that we hadn't really added it up, and I thought I was losing, but I didn't realize I was actually as close as it was. So that was also my bad. There's another situation earlier too where for some reason I moved 5 rubrics, but and they're on an objective, but for some reason I just put 2 of them on the objective for no particular reason. Like they did everything they could have done. They could have done as if I'd moved the whole unit on the objective. But in my head, I was like, oh, I'll just move 2 on the objective. Why do I need all 5, right? For no reason. And then he was able to basically double move like 3 gene sealers, like 20 inches across the table, just the 3 that he had left, and get onto my objective. And because I only had 2 rubrics instead of the whole unit of 5, which again, no reason I shouldn't have had that whole unit, he was able to take back the objective, which netted me 5 less points, which again meant that I lost. So multiple points in the game. I lost by 2 points the game. Multiple points in the game, forgetting an action, not being smart with my objectives and my primary mission, and just like not understanding what I need to kill, ultimately caused me to lose the game, right? And you know, and those are the kinds of mistakes that I like to make, right? Because my overall strategy was correct, like how I'm gonna win this game was correct, but the things I needed to do at the micro level to actually win the game, those small, they're like the half-inch mistakes, like moving those rubrics an extra half-inch, holding back an attack. Those are the kinds of like high-level mistakes that I was making. I wasn't making like general strategy mistakes where I just like threw things away. There's a few of those too, obviously, but like he made a few as well. So we both made some of those mistakes, but at the end of the day, those are the kinds of mistakes which I think are the best mistakes to make, because they're easy to fix, right? They're easy to kind of think about, and they're easy to like, I guess, it just shows that like, it felt good for me because it still showed that I had a sense of how to play the game, how to win the game. But the lack of practice and the lack of like knowing what to do in certain, I guess, scenarios is what actually caused me to lose the game. Not like me being like totally outplayed by Alex or anything like that. Like I think I overall had the right strategy, and had I just remembered a little bit more about his list, and had I just made some of those smaller mistakes a little bit smarter, or hadn't made some of those really small mistakes, I think I win that game. And that feels good for me. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with knowing that with some adjustment, with some more practice, with a little bit of better remembering of what other people's lists do, I'm still able to compete at a high level, because Alex is, again, much more practiced than me. Definitely been playing at a much higher level for me the last like 6 months. So, but albeit obviously neither of us, I think, are playing at like our peak, right? So that was actually a really good kind of learning game in a lot of ways. And then my second game against Brandon St. Pierre. So he's actually played Drukhari, really nasty Drukhari list. And that was, again, a very, very cagey, hard game. But I managed to pull that game off. It was my first time I beat Drukhari with my Thousand Suns. And obviously, last time we played, I didn't have my new book. But now I had my new book. And the power difference was enough to, like, get me over the edge to actually, like, win that game, right? So it was nice being able to, like, beat Brandon, because he actually won our league division. He was, like, the strongest player. And he won by beating me. And we actually, when I lost to him, I lost, I think, by like 2 points again. So coming back from that with my new book and beating his Drukhari list, it felt really, really good. And so I was very happy with like those 2 wins, or those 2 games. And so, you know, going into knowing like who else was left in the field, knowing who I'd most likely play and knowing kind of like my physical condition, I didn't really feel like I was, you know, that incentivized to try to get myself back into the event, like whether it's getting a ride from someone or taxiing or whatever. I just felt like, you know, I'd done what I wanted to do. I'd come in, I got my practice, I'd learned, I'd felt good about those games, and I was happy to miss out the last 2 days. Like I didn't, you know, feel too bad. Now I do regret it in retrospect, just because I kind of wished to have played those games to get the extra practice, but you know, it is what it is, and you know, I make my choices. So that was my weekend. It was a really fun event, and thank you obviously always to Dan Miner who organized it, and Brent Mooney, who's also one of the organizers from our group. And I did see a few of the people from chat at the game, so thanks guys for coming and chatting and stuff. But yeah, it was just like, I don't know, it was really fun to play an event, and I think you know, I'm playing the Las Vegas team tournament in 2 weeks. So if you guys are in, if any of you guys are in Las Vegas for that event, let me know. Come say hi. We'll grab a beer. Hopefully not too many, because I need to not be a drunk. And that event, I'm going to be very, very like on point, because I got to organize my whole team. I got to like make sure matchups are good. I got to do all the studying. My team's not green. I have some good players, but like they're not like, you know, they're not like we're not going to like win the event. I mean, it's going to be a hard slog, but I think I have a solid team. So we're hoping to do pretty well. I think we all have pretty good hobby track scores. So, you know, if we can like I think if we can go 4-1 at the event, I feel like that would be a really good accomplishment for our team. And yeah, I don't have many games before then, but lists are due on this Saturday or this Friday basically. So I'm gonna get lists in then, and yeah, that's kind of it. So anyways, let me know if you guys have any questions for me in chat. I'm gonna take 1 minute just to grab some water, and then I'll be back, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about my 1,000 Suns list and how I think it did and what I think I would change. And then that's gonna kind of be it for today. But yeah, gonna head out for dinner. So just give me 1 sec. Well, hey guys, I'm back. So, all right. That was really weird. Okay, so let's answer some questions. So, Tobias. Actually, first let me talk about my list, and then I'll answer your questions first. So first, multi-melt melee halberds, a meme or a real unit. I don't know yet. I've bought 2, and I just got them this weekend. 2 of the Forge World Castellix robots or whatever. And I'm going to sorry. I'm gonna see how they do. I'm gonna convert them up to be kind of magnetized so I can do a few loadouts, but I'm gonna paint them. I think I might actually even paint them in 30k colors, but we'll see. So I'm not sure. Dark Eldar, so Thousand Suns do open raiders really easily, man. So I took, for my shooting, I had 4 big shooting threats. So I had a Leviathan with double Storm Cannon and Volkites, which it picks up a raider a turn. I had a Contemptor, which picks up a raider a turn with double Volkite. And I also had a Forge Fiend with double Hades Autocannon, which picks up about a raider a turn if you're smart. So if you can get Prescience on it, so it hits on 2s, and it basically picks up a raider a turn almost. And then Scarab Occult Terminators, like with like the 40 shots, the bolters, and Soul Reapers pick up raiders too, right? So my Scarab Occult Terminators with the 2 Soul Reaper cannons, I'd usually shoot them last. And what I would do is I would soften up the raiders a little bit in my psychic phase. So throw a few, throw a Gaze of Hate on 1, take off a few wounds. Throw a Zenith's Firestorm on 1, take off a few wounds. Smite 1 if I can, take off a few wounds. And once they're down to about like 8 wounds, 7 wounds, then it's actually quite efficient to blow them up with those units. So on average, I was actually blowing up about 3 raiders per turn. And that's actually pretty good. So 3 raiders per turn is pretty good. Later in the game is coming down to about 2 raiders per turn, and then by the end of I actually tabled the Dark Eldar guy on my turn 5. He had nothing, like literally nothing left. And in that matchup, I deep struck the Terminators because there wasn't really a good place to hide them all. And I basically played KG my first turn because I ended up getting first turn, which I think was important. And I think if he gets first turn, it's still it's a little bit of a harder game, but I still think it's doable. But I think the big thing if he's going turn 2 is to play a lot more KG and go for the late turn, because you really basically if you're going second, you need to basically count on a 15-point primary on your final turn, and also take the kinds of secondaries like Grind Me Down and secondaries that you think you can reliably get. Obviously you can't take Wrath of Magnus, but I think it's there's the one where you do the psychic action, and depending on the secondary. So yeah, some things went my way, but honestly, like I think actually the new Thousand Suns play. Yeah, I am running the Thousand Suns Castellix as a Helbert, just because I think they're cool models, and I don't like the Helberts. They're too like fleshy for me. So yeah, so that's kind of like what I would recommend is. And here's my learning, and Brother Tobias, this goes into your kind of broader question and kind of my list thoughts. I did have fun, thank you. And Custodes, I mean, I don't like Custodes because I play Chaos. But the bigger thing I found about Thousand Suns is, and this is where I think a lot of players are maybe making list mistakes. And look, I don't know everything about it because I've only been playing, I've only played like a few small games, but you know when you just have a feeling about like how an army list plays and how you got to play it. Like I'm no Richard Siegler, but I have a pretty good like I guess brain when it comes to like how I think that a list should be played. You need to have, and there's 2 things that I'm learning and where I'm going to adjust my list. First, you need to have a decent amount of shooting in your list because, and it's got to be long range because the Thousand Suns, what they suffer from is fighting those long range battles. Almost all of your casts are 18-inch range, your damage spells, but on top of that, it's not just that it's 18-inch range, it's that it's actually like more like 14-inch range, because most like opponents, if you're just at 18 and you say cast that first smite, they're just going to take that first model off, and now all of a sudden you're out of smite range. So realistically, when you move up to do your like damage, you actually want your sorcerers within like 14 range or 12-inch range of the unit that you're shooting, because you don't want a situation where they're able to basically take a bunch of models off and then the rest of your army is out of the smite range. So you don't actually want to be casting right at that max 18 range. You want a bit more of I guess a gap, so you can cast at like 18 range or 16 range. So that's really important too, is to kind of be mindful of the fact that as you start to cast damage spells, your a lot of things are going to pop out of range, right? Because 18-inch range is not that big. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. The other thing to think about is when it comes to actions, because your psychic characters and your psychic spells are so important, not being able to do certain things because, for instance, like you basically don't want to sacrifice a normal 1,000 Suns unit for actions. And so a lot of people, Rites of Coalescence, I think is a really good like ability, but I'm actually really leaning towards Arcane Automata to allow units to shoot and still perform actions, because I think on the Terminator block it's actually slightly better, because that Terminator block with the OBSEC, getting that mid board and being able to kind of do actions and just kind of pump out shots is like fucking really strong. And so I'm having some second thoughts about the Rites of Coalescence ability versus the Action Monkey one. And then I'm also, I know I said this, guys, I said cultists are useless, don't put them in, but I'm so tight on points that I might actually switch in, put in a unit of cultists, because I think from like an action standpoint, a 50-point unit that can like do just basically, because here's what I found, because so many actions require infantry and they require infantry, you don't have that much infantry. You have rubric squads, you have Zangors, but your characters you want casting, and honestly a lot of your rubric squads and your Terminators you want casting too. So you don't actually want hey Wyatt, how's it going, man? You don't actually want your rubrics and Terminators and stuff doing actions, because if they're doing actions, normal actions, they can't cast. And what I found was I had one unit of Zangors, but in a lot of games I wanted to use that unit not for actions, but for blocking out deep strikers, for screening things, for playing much more aggressive on objectives. Because trust me, you don't want to throw up a 5-man rubric squad into mid-board on an objective for it to get wiped out in a turn, because you can't afford that. So oftentimes when you're taking those mid-board objectives, what you want to do is you want to have kind of your backfield objective holders and your rubrics, your scarab cults, your vehicles. And then up front to die, you want spawn, you want Zangors, you want cultists, you want things that you can kind of use your guns, your magic to clear off the objectives, and then gunk up the enemy to keep them away from you until you're ready to actually go in, because you can't afford to throw up a 115-point rubric unit on a middle objective or on a mid-board objective for it to get charged and wiped out or shot and wiped out. Like, if you losing that every turn, you're gonna lose the game. You really have to play super conservative with your rubrics and your vehicles and really hang them back and just pound the enemy. And that's where I think those cheaper units like Zangors and cultists come in and spawn, because they kind of gunk up the middle and they move block, they get in there, they even just to move block and stop things from coming and dying, which is what they need to do, is really important. The Demon Prince with the Conniving Plate and Undying Form is also good at that because he's so resilient. So if you can kind of train him back on an objective with a rubric unit behind cover and give him the bodyguard thing, that's actually really strong too, and it's another way to do it. But what I'm finding is, like, you got to be so conservative with your rubrics because they do die pretty quick, 5-man squads. And when you start losing cabal points, when you start losing buffs, and you know, you can't necessarily, like, just having a unit every turn that can do the no, I don't think Resident Rubricate, it's a huge trap. I used it in one of my games, but only because my opponent had a drop pod. I played my first game at Iron Hands, and he had a a 4-grav, 4 Melta drop pod, and I only had 10 Zangors to screen, but it was like a deployment with a lot of deployment space, and I could only screen one part of my deployment with the Zangors. And so instead of losing something else like my spawn or my Terminators or my vehicles, I threw up a unit of rubrics mid board of the Flamer dudes with Risen Rubrique to help screen out his turn 1 Deep Strike. So that was the only reason that I would ever use Risen Rubrique. I would not use it. Again, now, I'm not saying guys never use these abilities, but I think that you got to be really careful with how you play your rubrics and your characters. Like you gotta really play them conservative. Because if you can kind of keep the enemy clogged up in the middle, pound them with long range fire, and then come in with, and then once they finally do close, you kind of go in with your psychics and kind of, you know, beat them to oblivion. I think that's the way to play Thousand Suns. I don't think the way is to try to like, you know, like just like rely on the resiliency. They're not that resilient, even with like all the buffs.